Thank you very much. I'd like to call the special meeting of the Board of County Commissioners to order. The purpose of the special meeting is for the Board of County Commissioners to approve an ordinance draft providing individuals in Hillsborough County with the right to wear face coverings with certain exceptions to be codified in the Hillsborough County Code of Ordinance, authorize advertising and scheduling a public hearing for July 15, 2020, and Commissioner Overman's request to consider and approve a resolution regarding entry and safety protocols for public areas of county properties, parks, and buildings under the county administrator. Ms. Wise on the call?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Is there anything you'd like to bring forward, Ms. Wise?
I would just like to thank you all, and this is going to be our first special meeting, and we had those 2 agenda items as you discussed.
Okay. Commissioner Overman, is there anything you'd like to say before I bring up the open public comment?
No, sir. Please bring public comment forward, and then we can address the item afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, we're moving to public comment. First speaker is Jeffrey. Pardon me?
Could I do another roll call for the new meeting?
I'm sorry. Roll call. Yes.
Miller?
Here.
Hagan?
Here.
Kemp?
Here.
Merman?
Here.
Overman?
Here.
Smith?
Here.
White?
Here.
And you have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. Moving to public comment. Our first speaker is Jeffrey Bogie.
Yes, good morning to all of you. My name is Jeff Bogie. My father and I built Brandon Crossroads Bowl in 1990. Then my 2 sisters joined my father and I in building the Elliott South Shore in 2008. I've seen many of you in our centers over the years. My employees are in the front lines working in these difficult times already. Both centers have managed to crawl their way back, doing between 65 and 70% of their normal revenues for this time of the year. We are still losing money, but hope is on the horizon. Both centers experienced the same thing last night. League bowlers were brought up to speed with the new ordinance and told that they must wear face masks at all times other than when they are sitting at the table eating or drinking, physically up to bowl while maintaining social distance, or unless they had an existing medical condition. Between 8 and 10% of the bowlers, league bowlers last night simply quit the league and left. By the 3rd game of the league, at least half of the remaining league had removed their masks despite us asking them to wear them. Open bowling was the slowest it's been since we've reopened. People said they simply would not bowl in a face mask. It impaired their ability to breathe and causes glasses to fog up while they are looking at the pins and getting ready to throw their ball. My staff had to deal with several customers that became irate last night over them asking them to wear face masks. One person even broke a pool stick in front of the bartender and tossed it at her, cussing her out. This mandate must be corrected. My employees should not be put in the position of becoming the law enforcement agents, putting them in potentially dangerous situations. My family should not be in the position of being criminally charged with the crimes of people that they cannot and do not have that level of control over. We do accept accountability for our staff, and we have and will continue to mandate that they wear face masks. This we can control. Several Tuesdays ago, there was threats of a mass protest on Highway 301 and Big Bend Road right in front of the Elliott South Shore. This resulted in the police needing to blockade all access to my business for the evening, and we were forced to close, losing $8,000 that evening alone due to this closing. My family has been an active part of the community for over 30 years. We are proud of the culture of racial diversity and sense of community that we have fostered over the years. We have been and continue to be philanthropists for countless charities, Toys for Tots, Special Olympics, and Bowlers to Veterans Link. Please do not keep piling more and more of the burdens on already struggling small businesses. Please allow my family and our centers to survive and continue being the valuable assets that they are to this community. Thank you.
Debbie Boji?
Yes, good morning. My name is Deborah Boget, and I'm too here this morning speaking on behalf of our family bowling centers, Brandon Crossroads Bowl and the Alley at South Shore, and countless other businesses that have called me expressing the same concern. I do share your concern regarding the resurgence of COVID-19. I do not disagree with the conclusion that wearing face masks in all probability will curb the increase in number of cases. My concern lies with the manner in which this mandate imposes the responsibility for enforcement. To make businesses affected by COVID-19 bear the responsibility to enforce the wearing of face masks or be subject to criminal prosecution is too much to ask from us. My family and our employees should not be required to put our lives and safety in danger. Just last month, a Michigan security guard at Family Dollar was shot and killed for simply requesting a customer to wear a face mask in compliance with the governor's then executive order. A quick Google search will reveal countless reports of employees being spat upon and attacked for making the simple request to wear a face mask. You may say, well, they should call law enforcement, but by the time law enforcement can be called and respond, it's too late. The injury has already happened, or in the worst case, for the poor man in Michigan, he's already dead. Surely this commission recognizes the hardship that the enforcement requirement places on businesses, as the board conveniently exempted out government agencies, nonprofits, and schools from enforcement. Surely the virus is not less contagious in these settings. Matter of fact, as we recently learned this morning, the government agency that is the hotline had to shut down. So obviously it's not appropriately distancing within its own agency, but yet they're not subject to these criminal prosecutions. The end cannot justify the means. No other surrounding municipality or county is opposing criminal liability on business owners. We are willing to take responsibility for our own employees wearing face masks, and we're willing to put up signs to advise customers that they need to wear face masks. But individual citizens need to be held accountable for their own actions. Businesses should not be put in the position of being law enforcement. Please, on behalf of the business owners in Hillsborough County, I implore upon you to revise this order and remove the requirement that puts the burden on businesses to enforce compliance with this mandate. Thank you.
Kaylee Groff? Kaylee Groff?
Commissioner, she is on but not responding.
Okay. Give her one more chance. Kaylee Groff.
Probably on mute.
Okay. We're now moving to board discussion. Commissioner Overman, you want to start your discussion?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chair. To address some of the concerns we heard earlier, but this ordinance, this issue that we're talking about today, does not mandate in any way the use of face coverings. That mandate was created by the executive order that was passed at the Emergency Policy Group on Monday. There may be concern that this ordinance will confuse the messaging, but that was not my intent. This ordinance would permit residents, many with pre-existing health issues or related relatives with health issues, the right to continue wearing masks or face coverings without being impeded or harassed. At the EPG meeting, we have heard many, many experts, including Surgeon General Rifkes, Dr. Holt from our Florida Department of Health, USF Dean Lockwood, and Dr. Jason Wilson, who we reappointed to our Healthcare Advisory Board last week on the benefits of wearing face coverings to combat the community spread that we are currently experiencing in Hillsborough County. The Healthcare Advisory Board voted unanimously to recommend the wearing of face coverings. Face coverings are one of the recommended public health tools, such as avoiding large crowds, social distancing, good hygiene practices that help reduce viral transmission. This ordinance employs civil penalty provisions that focus on voluntary compliance through education and warnings by code enforcement officers, and was purposely written as such to direct enforcement away from our overburdened law enforcement agencies and to focus on civil rather than criminal penalties. The civil penalties are progressive in nature and begin with strictly education and a warning notice. The second and third violations carry civil citations. It takes 4 violations to escalate before someone would be required to show up in front of a judge. Any action by the BOCC would require a public hearing, which would allow our constituents the opportunity to be heard. Unfortunately, we live in a society where bully behavior is prevalent. And the last place it should rear its ugly head is during a public health emergency that has created an economic crisis. But given that it's where we are, it has become evident that we have the responsibility and opportunity to protect residents that have risk factors, and the proposed ordinance would assure them the right to protect their health, allowing them to wear a face covering without being impeded or harassed. As I move approval of the ordinance draft, providing individuals in Hillsborough County the right to wear face coverings with certain exceptions to be codified in the Hillsborough County Code of Ordinances, and direct staff to schedule and advertise a public hearing for July 15th, 2020 at 10 a.m.
Commissioner Kemp seconds.
There's a motion by Commissioner Overman, second by Commissioner Kemp. Is there any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion?
No, sir.
I see no hands. Please call the roll.
Miller,
Yes.
Hagan,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Merman,
Yes.
Overman,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
White.
No.
Motion carried 6-1. Commissioner White voted no.
Okay. Is there anything further on that subject? Anything further on that subject?
No, sir, thank you.
Commissioner Smith, I see your hand.
Sorry. All I would say is thank you very much to Commissioner Overman, Commissioner Miller, all the commissioners who have courageously led on the issue of trying to keep our citizens safe. We, this one and the next one, we understand the science is in, and we have to do what we can to protect our citizens. It is a tough call politically these days, and I appreciate your courage and your leadership.
Thank you. Commissioner Kemp, you recognize.
I'll be fast, but I'll say the same thing. Thank you, both Commissioner Miller and Commissioner Overman, for bringing this forward. I think this is a public health issue, a public health emergency. There's nothing we can do more in this crisis and spiking. Nothing we can do more to protect ourselves and to protect others and to wear a mask and use social distancing and make sure it's done. And I just implore everyone in our community to do so that we can start to be safe, begin to recover, and start to get out of this terrible place where we are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before we move on, you all received an email yesterday from Mr. Brandon Wagner concerning seeking a volunteer to serve on the Florida Association Board of Directors for our District 18. That's a seat that I held for a number of years, and I didn't run this year because I'm terminated in November, but we did not get anyone from this commission to volunteer to serve. It's a 2-year term. This district covers all of Hillsborough County. Others will share other parts of our surrounding counties, but this one serves only Hillsborough County. The chair of the Florida Association of Counties asked me to make a recommendation. If I don't, then they're going to make the recommendation. I would prefer that we do it here. So I'm going to ask, is there anyone that would like to serve as on the board of directors of the Florida Association of Counties representing District 18? Is there anyone?
I'm willing to do so. Commissioner Kemp?
I see Commissioner Hagan's hand. Commissioner Hagan, would you volunteer also?
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to serve as on the board for a number of years, and I'm happy to do it again. I usually attend the FAC meetings anyway, so just happy to do it.
Okay. Now we have Commissioner Hagan has volunteered and Commissioner Kemp has volunteered. Is there anyone else that will wish to volunteer? Seeing that, I can only recommend one person. We have 2 people that would like to volunteer.
I'll defer to Commissioner Hagan.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Kemp. So Commissioner Hagan Commissioner Kemp is deferred. So Commissioner Hagan will submit your name as on the board of directors of District 18. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you, Commissioner Kemp.
Is there anything else to come before us this morning?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, not other than what's on the agenda. I'm sorry.
What else is on the agenda?
Commissioner, we have the second item on the agenda.
What's the second item?
Commissioner Overman's request to consider and approve a resolution regarding entry and safety protocols for public areas of county properties, parks, and buildings under the county administrator. I'm
sorry, you're right. Commissioner Overman, you recognize.
Thank you, Chair. This item is, I think, important that we also set the stage for taking a lead. While my name is attached to it, I bring it out of respect for the care and concern of Mike Merrill for our county employee team and citizens, and to make sure that Ms. Wise has the ability to make our best wishes for our employees safe. During the discussion at Monday's EPG meeting, Mr. Merrill voiced his concern for the safety and wellness and well-being of our county employees and requested that language be included in the emergency policy executive order to allow the county administrator the authority to set entry and safety protocols for public areas for county parks, buildings, and properties. Rather than delay the passage of the order, and upon recommendation from Ms. Back, he withdrew his request and asked that this item be considered by the BOCC at this special meeting. I thank you for considering his request. I too share his concerns for our employees and strongly believe that the community is looking for its leaders to lead by example. With the passage of this resolution, the county can be aligned with the emergency policy order that was passed and follow the same orders that our businesses must follow. Thus, I move to approve the resolution as submitted in the backup materials, authorizing the county administrator, consistent with the administrator's executive responsibilities, to establish and implement entry and safety protocols for all persons entering county properties, parks, and buildings, effective immediately.
Commissioner Kemp seconds.
That's a motion by Commissioner Overman, second by Commissioner Kemp. See some hands. Commissioner Kemp, you recognize.
Sorry.
Okay. Commissioner Hagan, you recognize.
Yeah, I would just like to make a comment after we pass this motion. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Smith, you recognize.
Thank you. You know, the science is in, and we now know that if 80% of people in our community wear masks, we could reduce the spread of COVID to 8.3%, 1/12 of what it is now. And it's very important that as we ask our community to try to help out as much as people can with the mask wearing in order to stop and slow the spread of COVID in our community and take care of each other. It's really important that we do the same thing in our public buildings and our public parks. If we are ever going to open again for public hearings and public meetings, we will absolutely need to be providing a safe environment. And a key to that is well established now is requiring everyone to wear masks indoors. Indoors is where the spread is the worst, and where, you know, it's really important that we're all wearing masks. So I'm glad that we are able to put this on this agenda today so we can have the hearing, public hearing, in a timely manner, and hope that we can pass this protection for our employees and the public citizens who want to enjoy our and participate in our public spaces safely.
Commissioner White, you recognize.
Thank you. I can understand what a safety protocol would look like for entering indoor spaces or even recreational parks, but I'd like to ask staff what the protocol might look like for our large regional parks and our nature preserves.
Commissioner,
Who would
I
like to answer that?
I
Go
can
ahead, Ms.
start with that. This is Bonnie Weiss.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. And we do have other staff on the call as well who could possibly answer to me, because we have had a committee. Certainly the protocol for entering into a building such as County Center and into a regional park would have to be different, and we would have to consider that. So I would say that for something like a regional park, as Commissioner White mentioned, I think it would really be more the social distancing that we would want to adhere to, rather than the strict protocols of entering a closed facility.
And a follow-up question for staff. You know, we have a lot of parks in this county, recreational parks, regional parks, and our nature preserves. Do we have the staffing to manage these sorts of protocols at all those facilities?
Certainly, what we want to do is for people to comply. We do not necessarily have the ability to police such an endeavor, whether it's code enforcement or law enforcement. So that would certainly be a concern that we would have on the monitoring of that.
Okay. And if I understand this item correctly, is this a first reading or is this an adoption?
Commissioner White, this is Christine. This would be an adoption. It's just approving a resolution. There isn't a public hearing associated with this item.
Okay. I just want to say for the record that I'm not going to be able to support this item if it's going to include every single county facility. I think it's unnecessary for our outdoor facilities like our parks And I think we're kidding ourselves to even begin to think that we have the staffing available to actually properly carry this out. So I won't be able to support it for that reason.
Commissioner Kemp, you recognize.
Thank you. First off, I'd like to thank Commissioner Overman for bringing this forward. As you, Commissioner White, I would share the concern about our open areas, but I felt like Ms. Wise addressed that, I see, as Commissioner Smith mentioned, the masks are important indoors and not outdoors. But I'd like to say that more than anything, if we're going to require the community to do so, certainly, we should be protecting our own employees and staff and people that enter our buildings, and we should be the shining example for how it's done. So I absolutely think this is extremely important. Again, we've already had now our own incident with this. We need to keep everyone safe. We need to be the example. We need to lead the way, as well as put these requirements on the community, because we have got to get back to a place where it is safer, where we're not experiencing spikes, people in ICU, people dying, and businesses having to shut down in this terrible place that we're in right now. This will help in. This is the best public health measure we can take to bring us back to a place that's safe and healthy.
Commissioner Merman, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a question for Ms. Christine Beck. Our current policy exempts outdoor activities. Wouldn't that apply to this, or wouldn't this conflict with the this resolution?
No, Commissioner, this is Christine. The resolution has some built-in flexibility, and I do not see any conflict with the EPG order, which is mandating it for businesses. But certainly the resolution can be read to harmonize with the EPG order if that became necessary.
May I have a follow-up? I think
yes.
that okay, so the masks are for indoor. And I understand, Commissioner White, I really do. I get to what you're saying. I was over in Pinellas County and visited one of their parks, and they don't have police riding around checking people, but they do have signs everywhere. And I know that I think it's more the social distancing that we would want to advocate for and get our citizens to comply with when they go to our parks. And I don't think that that's an unreasonable ask going forward. And I don't think it's going to be very difficult to, for our staff at all. I kind of checked into that. So anyway, I'm going to be supporting it. Mr. Mel brought it up at the EPG, and we discussed it there, and we thought it was appropriate.
Commissioner Smith, you recognize.
Thank you. And I completely understand what Commissioner White is getting at. But as I read this, I think that it is flexible enough to address his concerns. It says that we are authorized, what we're doing here would be authorizing the county administrator, consistent with their responsibilities, to establish and implement entry and safety protocols for the general public and employees, which are intended to reduce the transmission of COVID. And it says entry and safety protocols may include the requirement to wear face coverings and masks and other things, conducting temperature. But I would think that, the county administrator, and I'll ask Ms. Wise to address this, but I would think the county administrator would be working with the parks and conservation department on our parks. And I think that we really need to have this much flexibility, because each park and preserve is we have a wide range of situations. So, for example, at the very beginning of the pandemic, Lettuce Lake Park had to be closed because people couldn't maintain the social distancing or weren't maintaining the social distancing there. Little tiny Apollo Beach Park, people weren't maintaining the social distancing. But I would imagine that if we post, and that's because you have situations like at Lettuce Lake, you have a boardwalk that is 4 feet wide, and you have that tower. If you have an awful lot of people on that, they can't do the social distancing. But I imagine if you had policies saying masks are required in our outdoor parks and preserves on ELAP land, we're going for a 7-mile hike somewhere, the sign would say social distancing is required, and if you can't maintain social distancing, then you would want to encourage mask wearing. But maybe on something like Lettuce Lake, the signs would say, please maintain social distancing. If social distancing can't be maintained on the boardwalk, you are required to wear a mask in those situations. So if it gets really crowded, you would be having to wear a mask. And I think it's important that we have that flexibility, but as I read this ordinance, we would be giving that to the administrator to work with parks to provide for keeping people safe, which may include wearing masks, may defer to social distancing where appropriate. And as far as the enforcement not being total, I would just say we can't get total enforcement on not keeping your dog on a leash on ELAP land. I mean, we can't expect total enforcement, but the best we can do is convey to people what is best practices in a way that puts some teeth with it, so they know we're serious. It's not just encouraging, it's not just suggesting. This is what the rules are. And with that, I'll close and ask Ms. Wise to address that matter of flexibility between indoor and outdoor spaces and mask wearing when social distancing is impossible.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Perhaps I wasn't as clear as I intended to be. I did too want to mention that it said that entry and safety protocols may include certain options. And as you mentioned, certain options certainly vary in a park from a public building. The other thing I wanted to mention too is our idea is to limit the inconvenience to the public, certainly, but we do want to educate them, and we do want to provide the appropriate information for them. And then finally too, we have some what I'll call major tenants in some of our facilities, such as the courts. So we would certainly want to work with them as to what they are recommending too for their operations for the public access as well. I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Okay. We're going in round two now. Commissioner Overman, you recognize.
Great, and I appreciate the questions. I think it was important for us to understand what we're doing here, which is to authorize the county administrator to establish, and implement entry and safety protocols. We have a wide, diversified list of facilities and many partners, as Ms. Wise mentioned. Each one of these facilities have a different level of engagement with our citizens and a different level of circumstances that would allow for safety protocols to be adopted. So all this does is give our county administrator the responsibility of managing our facilities for safety. And I just want to add, I did have a very short conversation yesterday with Chief Justice Figueroa. And while they are, in a county building, they are one of our partners, and they are establishing protocols for how the courts will operate, and the face coverings, sounds like face coverings will be absolutely part of their process. So we have great partners in this. We have libraries that we do need to develop protocols for as they open. We have a variety of different types of facilities where situations are similar and other cases different. And this gives us the flexibility of allowing the county administrator to act quickly and implement safety protocols so that we don't have to do this, every 2 weeks or every week, like unfortunately we may need to argue about at the emergency policy group. So I encourage the support of this motion and to support the county administrator to be able to move forward on putting protocols in place for our employees. Thank you.
Commissioner White, you recognize.
Thank you. Well, although it may seem like it at times, I actually do not relish being the lone dissenter on some of these things. I would like to support this. I'll take a crack at an amendment that could get me to a place where I could support it. I don't know that the amendment will get a second, much less pass, but I'll take a crack at it. And that would be to offer an amendment that for any BOCC-controlled public facilities, that any entry protocols beyond signage would only apply to our indoor facilities.
Is there a second to the amendment? Is there a second to the amendment?
Can he repeat
Amendment
that?
dies for lack of a second.
Oh,
Amendment dies for lack of a second.
okay. I can unmute fast.
Okay. We are now back on the motion.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
point of order. It appears that Commissioner Merman was having issues with her mute button and was trying to say something during the process of asking for a second.
Well, I called for a second almost 3 times, Commissioner White, and didn't get an answer for anything.
I know.
I called for it almost 3 times. Usually you do it only twice. I did it almost 3 times.
I know, it's just unique. It's a unique situation because this is a virtual meeting. I just didn't know if you'd want to hear what Commissioner Merman was trying to say.
Well, Commissioner Merman, what were you trying to say?
I just want him to repeat his amendment so I could hear it. It's our, that's the issue. I guess I couldn't get to my unmute button fast enough, but I just wanted to hear his amendment again.
Okay. Commissioner White, I will withdraw the lack of the second and put it back on the table. Would you please restate your amendment?
Sure. So in the amendment, I said for any BOCC controlled county facility, which, would still give constitutional officers and the courts and everyone the ability to enact any protocols that they want. So it was that. And for any entry protocol above and beyond signage would apply to only indoor facilities. So the spirit of it is that for regional parks, nature preserves, things like that, we could have all the signage that you've talked about, encouraging face masks and social distancing and whatnot. But any physical entry protocol like temperature checks and requiring face masks and things like that would only apply to entry into any indoor facility that's controlled by the BOCC.
Is there a second to the amendment? Is there a second to the amendment?
I'll second it. I don't see a problem with it. I'll second.
Okay, we have amendment to the motion by Commissioner White, second by Commissioner Merman. Commissioner Overman, you recognize.
I apologize, Chair. I forgot to take my hand down.
Okay, is there any further discussion to the amendment to the motion? Seeing none, call the roll, please. On the amendment.
Miller,
No.
Hagan,
Yes.
Kemp,
No.
Merman,
Yes.
Overman,
No.
Smith,
No.
White.
Yes.
Motion failed 3-4. Commissioners Miller, Kemp, Overman, and Smith voted no.
Yeah.
Now back on the motion by Commissioner Overman, second by Commissioner Kemp. Seeing no further discussion on that motion, please call the roll.
Miller,
Yes.
Hagan,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Merman,
Yes.
Overman,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
White.
No.
Motion carried 6-1. Commissioner White voted no.
Commissioner Hagan, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll be quick. I just want to make a quick comment only because we're not going to be meeting again for 3 weeks. I'm sure that all the board members are aware of the recent meltdown we've had with one of our solid waste carriers due to many employees testing positive for COVID-19. 51,000 houses have been affected over 3 days with this one carrier. Recycling's been suspended. And to make matters worse, customer service calls have been a nightmare. People have been on hold 15, 20 minutes only to get dropped. We're being inundated with emails and phone calls. And to me, this is just simply unacceptable. I mean, I know staff is working on it, but I want to ensure that the staff is being creative in addressing the problems here, and also need to have a plan should the other 2 carriers have similar issues. And so I'm going to have an agenda item for the next meeting asking for a service update and a plan on how we're going to address this issue. But just wanted to put it out there, get it on the record, and make sure that staff's doing everything they can to mitigate and to correct the problem that's happening out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hagan. Anyone from staff want to address that?
Chairman Miller, we will put that on the next agenda and also provide updates in between as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Merman, you recognize.
Thank you, and I'll make this brief. There's a lot of confusion out there about childcare facilities and children having to wear masks during their 8 and 9 hour stay in childcare facilities, which they do not have to wear masks. They are under the governor's order, but there is confusion. So I'm going to be bringing an item to clarify and clear up this confusion, and probably raise the age in the exemptions from age 2 to age 12. But just wanted to let everybody know, because there are several emails, I think, floating around out there. We are not going to be discussing the mask ordinance, as I understand from Mr. Chair, not until Monday. Is that correct?
That's right. Yes.
Okay. So I'll be bringing an amendment to the policy on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no other hands. Members, you have received 2 ugly emails this morning that cut very deep and are very painful, especially to me. It's unfortunate. That's the sad circumstances of where we are in this county, in this state, in this country. If I can take the high road, I ask that you all take the high road. I think we all are here, regardless of what side of the spectrum you're on, to work for the betterment of our people in this county. That's the oath we took. That's the oath we live by. So the deepness and the pain that hurts that comes, you probably can't feel it like me. But I just ask that you continue to take the high road. With that being said, we adjourn.
Thank you.